Senator, first, that's pending litigation, and I can't discuss that at all. The 21 is pending litigation. I cannot discuss that.
In Florida?
But if I could go back
I really
the
didn't know
21
this.
age is pending litigation.
This may look like a routine exchange about firearm policy, but it's actually a stress test of how power responds when moral urgency collides with legal restraint. What's really being tested here is whether the justice system can engage openly with policy consequences while shielding itself behind procedure. This raises broader questions about independence, accountability, and the limits of executive discretion. In this video, we'll break down how institutional caution can quietly override democratic debate and why that matters far beyond this hearing.
Senator Klobuchar, you're recognized.
Thank you. Attorney General Bondi, good morning. I'm going to start on a different subject.
Good morning.
On behalf of families in my state. And I wanted to thank the FBI and the local justice officials in Minnesota, the U.S. Attorney's Office, for the work that they did catching the murder, in the horrific murder of my friend, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband, and the shooting of Senator John Hoffman. Just last month, my state was again shaken to its core when a mass shooter attacked Annunciation Catholic Church in Minnesota, shooting through the stained glass windows, injuring 21 people, including 18 kids, killing little Fletcher, little Harper, an 8 and a 10-year-old, murdering them when they're in mass praying, 12-year-olds protecting 8-year-olds. I know we've spoken about these tragedies, and we both agree that this kind of violence, whether in Minnesota or at a Mormon church in Michigan or the assassination of Charlie Kirk, has no place in our politics or in our democracy. In 2018, after the Parkland shooting, you were Attorney General, and there was a bill called the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act. And the bill banned bump stocks, enacted red flag laws, and raised the minimum age to purchase a firearm in Florida from 18 to 21. And you actually defended the law in court from a challenge from the NRA. And we know that I'm in favor of an assault weapon ban, period. I look at these bills and I think, does this hurt my Uncle Dick in the deer stand? We have a proud tradition of hunting in Minnesota. I don't think they do. But as I talked to Director Patel, and he told me in the chair you are sitting in right now, that assault weapon bans could prevent future attacks. I talked to him about better background checks, about red flag laws, and then that perhaps we could find common ground on what actually happened in Florida, which would be to at least change the minimum age for purchasing assault weapon, because we've got 18 to 20-year-olds commit gun homicides at over triple the rate of adults 21 years and over, even though that wouldn't helped in Annunciation Church because he was a few years older. She was a few years older. But as you know, the shooter at Parkland was 19 years old, and the shooters in Buffalo and Uvalde were both 18 years old. So given your efforts in Florida, do you agree that at least raising the age for purchasing assault weapons could reduce the number of these shootings?
Senator, first, that's pending litigation, and I can't discuss that at all. The 21 is pending litigation. I cannot discuss
in
that.
Florida?
But if I could go back
I really
the
didn't know
21
this.
age is pending litigation. I can't discuss that. But Senator, back to what you said about what happened in Minnesota, there is no place for that. And I believe I spoke to you after that horrific, those murders. And I'm so sorry that happened. And all of my federal agencies were partnering with state agencies, working hand in hand in Minnesota. What I can tell you about the Second Amendment is this is the most pro-Second Amendment DOJ in American history, as you know. But we want to keep guns, as you said, where they should be, in the hands of law-abiding American citizens, while keeping them out of the hands of criminals and gangs. Since January 20th, the ATF and FBI have seized more than 30,000 illegal guns.
I have 10 minutes
30,000.
You have
Senator
given these
Klobuchar.
statistics, and I truly appreciate those statistics. But what I was just trying to get at was something where maybe we could find common ground on a bill that you actually defended in court in a state, which Director Patel seemed open to, and that was looking at could we at least raise the age to 21 of the purchase of an assault weapon federally while states look at banning these weapons overall, given these little babies that this gun is used to kill. So we can talk about it later, but that was my question, and you don't want to answer it.
No, it's pending litigation, Senator.
Okay, but your views on this is not pending litigation. So I want to get to the independence of the justice.
What we just witnessed in that hearing was not a shouting match, not a dramatic breakdown, and not a viral soundbite engineered for clicks. It was something quieter and in many ways more revealing. A senator laid out a long record of pain felt by communities across her state, pointed to concrete policy choices made in the past, and asked a direct question about responsibility going forward. And in response, the nation's top law enforcement official did not engage the substance of that question. Instead, she stepped back, invoked procedure, and declined to answer. That moment, when Amy Klobuchar pressed for clarity and Pam Bondi refused to give it, tells us far more than any statistic ever could. Senator Klobuchar did not speak in abstractions. She spoke about names, places, and the lived reality of communities shaken again and again. She acknowledged the deep cultural traditions of lawful gun ownership in her state. She made clear she was not trying to score points or vilify ordinary Americans. Instead, she asked whether the federal government could at least consider measures that had once earned bipartisan support, measures that this very official had defended in court when she served in Florida. Her question was careful, narrow, grounded in precedent, and yet the answer never came. Attorney General Bondi repeated the phrase pending litigation like a shield, even as the question moved beyond courtroom technicalities and into moral leadership. It was not a request to rule on a case. It was an invitation to state values, to explain whether the Department of Justice sees room for compromise in the face of repeated national trauma. That invitation was declined. This is not just about one policy dispute. It is about the widening gap between public accountability and institutional power. When officials retreat behind legal language to avoid discussing principles, it signals a system more concerned with insulation than with engagement, a system that speaks fluently about enforcement numbers and agency seizures, yet struggles to articulate how those tools align with the human cost borne by communities. Bondi emphasized that this is the most pro-Second Amendment Justice Department in history. That phrase alone is revealing. It frames constitutional rights as an ideological scoreboard rather than a balance of freedoms and responsibilities. It suggests that the role of government is not to weigh competing interests in good faith, but to plant a flag and defend it at all costs. Klobuchar, by contrast, was searching for common ground. She cited law enforcement officials, she referenced prior legislation, she acknowledged limits. Her frustration did not come from disagreement alone, but from the sense that dialogue itself was being shut down. When she finally said, "You don't want to answer it," she was naming what millions of Americans feel when they watch these hearings unfold. That the real debate is often avoided, not because it is impossible, but because it is inconvenient. What does this reveal about leadership in America today? It shows a government increasingly comfortable with deflection, a justice system that prides itself on strength, yet hesitates to confront uncomfortable questions about prevention and responsibility. A political culture where legal caution is used not to protect fairness, but to avoid moral clarity. This moment also exposes the limits of hearings themselves. These rooms are designed to be places of oversight, where power is questioned and answers are demanded. But when answers are withheld, the ritual continues anyway. The cameras roll, the clock runs, and the public is left to interpret silence as policy. There is a deeper tension here between law as a technical instrument and justice as a moral pursuit. Law can always find a reason not to speak. Justice cannot. Justice requires officials to explain not only what they can do, but what they believe should be done. When that explanation is absent, trust erodes. The exchange we saw today will not end this debate. It will not resolve the issue. But it adds another layer to the record, a record showing how often grief is met with caution, how often urgent questions are answered with procedural walls, and how rarely those in power are willing to say plainly where they stand. In the end, Senator Klobuchar's words linger not because they were dramatic, but because they were unanswered. And unanswered questions have a way of following a system, haunting it, demanding attention long after the microphones are turned off. This is what accountability looks like in real time. Not resolution, but exposure. Exposure of priorities, exposure of limits, exposure of the distance between the governed and those who govern. If you want to keep seeing these moments, if you want to hear what officials say and what they refuse to say when the stakes are real, then stay with us. Support our work and subscribe to Liberty Report USA.